But Maggie, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and share your wisdom. Would you mind to just share with the audience a little bit about who you are? And your story is so compelling. And I think that it would really benefit the people watching to know a little bit about you, a little bit about your history, and what led you to the work that you do.
Sure. Well, I'm so glad that I'm here, and I welcome all your audience participants, and very grateful to be here today. A little bit about me. I'm somebody that had a lot of issues, growing up. I come from an alcoholic family, a lot of dysfunction, trauma. I started I ended up becoming an alcoholic probably in my 30s. I was very successful. I was a business owner, but I had a lot of issues, and I just was one of those business issues, business type people. I'll deal with everything later. I'm fine, and then eventually I hit a wall and I became very, very sick. And I was bedridden with big mold exposure, and I had chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, multiple chemical sensitivities, all of which really you cannot take care of them using medication. So that brought me into a whole other realm of alternative medicine, holistic healing, and I ended up resolving those issues. I ended up working in the laboratory Center for Disease Control in Health Canada on environmental illness issues, because a lot of women and children in particular were really having a lot of allergies and chemical sensitivities. And then eventually I worked in the military on post-traumatic stress disorder for veterans. Later on, thank God I knew a lot of this. And then I was diagnosed with cancer. I had thyroid cancer, and I was able to overcome that all naturally. No chemo, no drugs. I did that all naturally, but I combined scientific testing with alternative healing. And then my son finally came to live with me, and, gone through so much, and feeling that we're finally on a roll. We're in the zone finally. And then unfortunately, my son, very capable, lovely young man, 27 years of age, ended up dying by suicide. Very briefly, he had struggled with mental health problems as a young boy. Didn't always see it. My ex and I were split, so I didn't always see what was going on in the home. And unfortunately, with mental health issues, you don't always know you have a problem. You just think that's part of who you are. So he ended up on medications, a lot of different meds. And I really kept saying, they're not working, they're not helping. We need to do other things. But he was living with his dad, and they both agreed that they wanted to do the medication. So that's fine. And then eventually he came to live with me, as I said, and he went out one night with some frat friends and ended up smoking pot. And the THC is too high for young people, especially under 26. The brain is still developing. So my son was 24 when this happened, and I'm telling you, it destroyed his life. He ended up, that type of THC affects different parts of the brain. So it affected his pain receptors. So he was always in pain. He felt like he was burning from the inside out, sulfuric acid pain. I call it burning brain syndrome. It's called somatoform disorder, but I mean, it's just, there's so many young people that are dealing with this, and psychosis and schizophrenia. And it just got so bad at the end that my son was on 17 different medications, some of which increased suicidality, and he just couldn't take it any longer. So he ended up, I got really emotional. My only son, he ended up dying in a motel room by himself, because if me or his father had been there, we would have been charged for illegally abetting a crime. So it's not illegal to die by suicide, but it's illegal to be with anyone. I never got to say goodbye to my son. So we all have passion. I'm hearing a lot of entrepreneurs talking about all their passion and their goals, but my purpose really in life now is to share all this information, wisdom, and knowledge that I have with others to really help them get more energy, memory, and mental resiliency, especially entrepreneurs as they're aging, as they're scaling their businesses. We just saw in the last presentation, there's a lot of work, mind work that is required, mindset work. Your emotions need to be in check. You need to be highly focused and productive. And unfortunately, I see too many entrepreneurs and even high achievers that are trying to manage multiple projects. They end up, their energy's declining. They're having issues with focus, with productivity issues. And so my goal is to show them different ways that we can achieve that. because I want you to be really successful in your life. I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. This is my second company. I used to teach Canadian companies, how to go global. And I spent a lot of time in China, Japan, Hong Kong, Europe. And, those of us who are doing international work, you need that energy, but you need the same amount of energy, even if you're just at home in your community, because there are so many demands daily on an entrepreneur, not to mention family life and other activities that you're trying to accomplish, during your week.
Yeah. So one of the things that compelled me to bring you into this was you had what you call the 3 R's roadmap to peak productivity. So can you tell
Right.
us a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So just before we go to the 3 R's roadmap, I want to talk very briefly about what I've noticed that entrepreneurs and high achievers get stuck in is what I call my 4 energy traps. So the first energy trap, and just pay attention, let me know, if you fall into either one of these traps or all of these traps, because this is how we started off. So the first energy trap is what I call the drag trap. That's when you're really, really tired and you have lots of things to do, a gazillion post-it notes on the wall, and all kinds of demands, and you just don't have the energy. And we get really down when we're like that. The second energy trap is the emotional roller coaster trap. 1 minute you're up, you're feeling energized, you're productive, but then the next minute you're down, you're not productive at all. So it's too up and down. It's really hard to stay focused and get things done. The third trap is what I call the negative self-talk trap. And I'm sure we can all relate to this. This is all about your mindset. Who do you think you are, Amber, to think that you're going to make, $20,000 or $30,000 a month, or, maybe people are looking at moving into now having a business on the side, and you've been a full-time employee for a long time. Who do you think you are thinking that you can do that? And I always say too, like, don't tell your family sometimes about your plans, because a lot of people tend not to support small business people. So so we're dealing with all these different issues. And then the fourth one is what I call the withdrawal trap. That's when you're going home and instead of having a couple of cookies, now you're eating a box of cookies, or instead of one glass of wine, now you're drinking a bottle a night. And a lot of times, and I'm dealing with, quite a few entrepreneurs that are in this boat right now, is this happened, especially during COVID. People got really stuck in ruts, and now they've got these patterns and they don't often want to do it. But then at night, they're into that pattern. So again, we have the drag trap. We've got the roller coaster trap, the emotional roller coaster trap. We've got that negative self-talk trap, and then we've got the withdrawal trap. So, which one are you in? Some people are in one. Some people shift and they move from one to another to another. So then if you want to break free from those drag traps, the only way I have seen people do this is actually achieving what I call a state of rebalance, right? So a state of rebalance is when you are focused. That feeling when you're in the zone, when you're working and everything is just, you're calm, you're cool, you're collected, you're managing your clients, you're fine with bringing in new clients, you're doing really well with the marketing, everything is just really flowing. We want to get into that peaceful productivity, peaceful profit attitude. And so the only way I find for you to actually achieve that is with what I call my 3 R's roadmap. So remember them, there's 3 R's. So the first one is what I call remove. Just remember this for a second. I think my dog is going to start barking. Remove, it's removing toxic chemicals. The second one is rebalancing your minerals. And then the third one is reframing your mindset. So it's those 3 R's that we really dig down in. And I'm sorry to do this, but I have a 16-year-old dog who can't get off the couch. So I have to go and get him. I'll be right back.
Sure.
I have a beautiful Shih Tzu dog who's 16, and I actually detoxed my dog, and he doesn't have joint pain, and he's doing awesome. But he knows now not to jump because we're protecting.
I love that. I love that. Good.
Yeah. So would you like me to talk a little bit more about the 3 R's, get into them a little bit more in detail?
Yes, that would be great.
So, we hear a lot about climate change, right? But honestly, if we could the whole world could unite on reducing chemicals in our air, in our water, in our food, we would all be so much better off. There are so many chronic illnesses that we're seeing: cancer, fibromyalgia, joint pain, arthritis, all these different issues. Often it's the chemicals in our food. And this is really, really important. And I'm seeing each generation with more and more chemicals in their body. And I mean, I've done testing for children. You'd be shocked to see the toxic levels of chemicals, even in our kids. So no wonder we're seeing exponential rises in mental health issues, mood disorders, ADHD. It's often chemical related: air, food, and water. So just to give you an example, I don't know if you have heard of something called TBHQ. It's a preservative, and it's actually found in Pop-Tarts and Cheez-Its, which, you know, the kids like to eat, and in over 1,200 other products of food, just food alone. And then wow. Europe has a top safety organization, and they've actually found titanium dioxide, which is an additive in like Skittles and Starburst and thousands of other foods. And listen to this, it actually damages your DNA. So there's all types of chemicals. And I was just listening to a program yesterday. More and more people like fragrances. They're buying more and more fragrances, and yet they're full of hormone disruptors. They're increasing asthma. They're neurotoxic, and they're carcinogen. They can cause cancer. And I'm very sensitive. So when I go into a home and I can smell all these different scents going on, I can actually smell the chemical. A lot of people can only smell the scent, but I actually smell the synthetic chemical. And what people don't realize is that it can make you tired. So kids can get really hyper from it. Your dog can be affected. You have to be very well aware of not just the impact of chemicals on the family, but also on your animals. And recently I went for an ice cream bar. I have a bit of a sweet tooth, I have to admit. And I looked at the back of it. So I'm just encouraging everyone now, start reading the back of the boxes. And honestly, if you find some chemicals, don't buy it anymore. If we want companies to change, we can get them to change with their pocketbook. And simply by not buying and reducing the amount that they're selling, they're going to start turning around. That's how we get them to turn around. Because I think in this day and age, 1 in 3 people having cancer, it's insane. It's really insane. Anyways, I was going back to ice cream and I found propylene glycol. Do you know what they use propylene glycol for? To de-ice planes. Oh. So I don't think you really want that in you. So I do testing. I have a testing procedure, and we look at 5 toxic chemicals. We look at lead, we look at mercury, we look at cadmium, we look at arsenic, and we look at aluminum. And just for women, I'm seeing so many women today, 20, 30 years old, high levels of aluminum, and every decade it's increasing. It is so important for you to get that out, because more and more women are being diagnosed with Alzheimer's in their 60s. So there's a real correlation between aluminum and senility, cognitive decline and memory. And if you're starting to get those little brain farts, don't write them off. And when I refer to brain farts, it's about, why am I here? Why did I come downstairs? Those little things. That's a signal. Pay attention, pay attention. And toxic chemicals, they can't be metabolized in your body. So they stay in your bones, they go into your bloodstream, they stay in your lymphatic system. And that contributes to what we call your body's toxic burden. So the second R is basically we rebalance your minerals. So your minerals are so important for every aspect of your body: your eyes, your hair, your skin, your thyroid, hormonal issues, cardiovascular issues. And what we're finding as people are aging, their minerals are declining. So if you have any issues with energy, focus, things like that, memory, it's because your minerals are declining. You need minerals, and you get that through supplementation, and it's actually created in your gut. So a lot of people, they're taking medication that's impacting the brain, but really for serotonin and all these other different neurotransmitters, you need specific minerals that are in your gut that actually create the neurotransmitters in your brain. So it's really important.
I've actually heard the gut called the second brain, and it's probably for that exact reason.
Yep, they call it the microbiome, the second brain, and more research is being done. And yes, it's so critical. And so a lot of us aren't eating properly. We're putting all these chemicals in our body. We're destroying our gut flora. So it's not surprising that we're also having mood issues, etc. And then finally, the third the third R is basically reframing your mindset. So, I mean, we hear a lot about mindset, right? But as you get older, you get more and more stuck in what you're doing, your comfort zone. So you have the conscious, which is, your goals. This is where I want to be in a quarter, down the road, next year, these are my financial goals, etc. However, if you've been doing the same thing for a long time, even though you know you need to shift, you could write all the post-it notes around your house. You're not going to shift, right? So I've actually mastered a technique that actually basically goes into your subconscious in a very gentle way. It helps calm down the nervous system, and you get into the emotional reasons of what is holding you back. Because a lot of people have financial issues. They've been brought up perhaps with more of a scarcity or poverty mentality with their parents, or money doesn't grow on trees, and like it's really hard to get. And I have actually helped my clients double and triple their income by
amazing.
shifting that mindset. But it's not talk therapy is great for awareness, but it's not enough to shift. And I was just talking to a client this morning. She's in her 40s, and she was saying, yeah, I'm so stuck in thinking a certain way, and I got to get out of my own way. I'm holding myself back. And if you don't believe it, and you don't feel like you can make that money, you can have all the funnels and all the closing practices you want. People are energetically going to feel it, and they're not going to want to do business with you because you're not really being perceived energetically as an authority figure.
Absolutely. So true. So for people who want to work with you, I have included the link up in the copy above. So please click that link. Can you just tell them a little bit, briefly before we pop into questions and answers?
I can't hear you. I'm
Can you
struggling
hear
to.
me now?
Oh, go ahead. Try that again, please.
Okay, sure. So for people, we're gonna get into questions and answers here in just a minute. But for people who want to work with you, can you tell them what kind of experience they can expect?
Okay, I'll just give you a couple of examples. It's best way. So I just recently worked with a woman during COVID, and she's a successful book author, but she wanted to create more groups. She was pivoting online, and she had some mindset issues around money. She was having problems with her mother. Her mother was very demanding, which can impact your ability to work and get things done in the day. And so she realized she had to do some emotional work around that, and we shifted her belief system. And you know what, she doubled her income during COVID. Not only that, I do something called hair and mineral testing. Remember, we talked about minerals. We have to figure out what your minerals are. We did a whole mineral test, and we ended up reducing her toxic chemicals, rebalancing her minerals. And so now she has even more energy. And now she's got a substantial number of different groups that she's now working with herself, so that they're going to be writing their book. She's teaching them how to write a book.
Amazing.
Another example is a gentleman I work with, a mortgage broker, and he was very tired. He was a vegetarian. He wasn't eating the right food for his own metabolic nature. And so we ended up making shifts there. We did a test. We started to rebalance him. And he and his partner are the #1 company in Canada. So you need a lot of energy for that.
Heck yeah, you do. Very good. So go ahead.
Oh, and then I was just going to say, I work with families sometimes with the children. I love the kids, and I have a special place in my heart for youngsters. A lot of them are struggling with anxiety and depression and things like that. So, like I said, I'm a recovered alcoholic. I've been 12 years sober, and I actually work now with young people, and I've worked with several now young men to help them permanently stop smoking marijuana. They were getting addicted to it. And then I just recently worked with 2 sisters who were binge drinkers, and really their lives weren't going anywhere. They didn't even know what they wanted. They didn't know who they were, and they were starting to get small. When you start getting depressed, you start going in and you don't believe in yourself. Well, now those 2 young ladies have careers and their own, they're living on their own, and
Amazing.
they couldn't even have envisioned that before.
Sure. That's amazing. Incredible work. So if you wouldn't mind to just tell people where they can find you, the link, of course, is in the content above, but do you just want to give a quick pitch on where people can find you?
Actually, if I'm gonna try, I like to share something, see if I can just find something right here. Let me just put this on. I just wanted to, hang on 1 second. I don't know. Can you see this here? Do you see this? Yeah.
Yes, I can. Yep.
So if they want, there's a QR code. You can actually download my free PDF. It's basically proven strategies on how to get unstuck from your 4 common energy traps. And then if you want to go on my website, it's maggiemaier.com. You can either, book in with my scheduler, or you can just email me, because sometimes that booking calendar is very, very full, and I can have my team just sort that out, and we can just book a 30-minute conversation. I'd love to learn more about you, what your issues are, what traps you feel you're in, and how to resolve that and get you out of that. And of course, definitely, download this this QR code, and then I can also stay in touch with you via email.
Amazing. Well, before we wrap up, I just want to open it up for questions. Does anyone have a question for Maggie before we end this and hop into our next call with Judith? No questions? If there are questions later, certainly I'm going to tag Maggie in the video in Facebook, as well as in the event within our Facebook group. Feel free to ask any questions there, and she would be happy to chime in and answer and get you on the right path and potentially work together. That would be amazing. So Maggie, thank you so much for your time. Is there a final closing comment that you want to leave, or
I would
maybe a
love
pitch or
to.
anything? Yeah, please.
No, I would just love to. I just want you to know that we've all gone through, a lot in the last few years, and we're really changing, and people are shifting, and a lot of stuff is coming up that before we would just push down. And I really encourage you to pay attention to your body, to give yourself that time, because I learned a long time ago. I mean, I thought before, like a lot of people, oh, I'm going to make money and then I'll work on myself. But no, if you actually do more work on yourself, get your energy and your mindset, you'll actually be more successful faster. And that's the wisdom I'd love to impart on you. I'm just going to be celebrating my 60th birthday next week, and I have
Yay.
tons of energy, and I want the same for you.
Absolutely. Well, happy early birthday, Maggie. Happy International Women's Day. I hope you are celebrating you and the women around you all day today. And thank you so much for bringing your wisdom and sharing with everybody here.
Thank
Very much
you.
appreciated. All right, everybody, have a great day. Judith, I am going to hang this up, and I will jump back on the next time with you.